Hello everyone! It's been a while since last time you saw me, right? Well, I found out something interesting I wanted to share with you all. Did you know that Guilty Gear Strive has moves? Crazy, right? And well, it's the exact reason why I'm out here today with Crunchy Audio just to list what's the worst move of every single character in Guilty Gear Strive. Now, I know this might be a bit of a stretch, considering that unlike other games such as Smash Bros, which PG goes covered on his channel, Strive isn't really a game known for having bad moves, but I think that just makes it more fun and interesting and makes the move way less obvious at first glance. For this video, I also asked for the help of my friend TaskFGC, which some of you may know, not only researching the various moves, but also listing them as we go.
Hello, it's me.
So now I'd say let's not waste any more time with this intro, and let's rather head towards the main point of this video, starting off with the main boy himself, Ky Kiske, so bad guy. But first, let's set some ground rules. The first one is that every character will be listed in chronological order, so from Soul to the last DLC character we ever gotten in the game. Also, no move will be considered in a specific situation, say like rainwater but it's just very up close. It will be considered in a vacuum in the context of the character. And lastly, every single move information will come mainly from character discourse, even for the characters whose moves are extremely fucking obvious. And talking about obvious, Soul's worst move is obviously Heavy Mob Cemetery. So tasks from the future here, Soul and Ky are the only two characters we did before patch 3.75 came out, and as soon as that came out we halted the video's progress for a bit and decided to wait for season 4. So some things we say about these two characters specifically may be wrong or outdated. Just these two though. And that should come as no surprise. Its best use is clearly as a whiff punish tool for other supers or other moves with a long startup. However, it's not the best at it because the armor doesn't immediately start as soon as you input the super, but it starts after it already starts traveling. But it also has other issues that are even worse somehow. It's always jumpable after the flash, on reaction, you can never combo into it, even if the opponent is wall splat, it's never gonna wall break, it actually corners yourself, and it's gonna lose to a lot of airborne moves all the time, mainly because it's a grab, which makes it extremely jank against some normals in the game, even if you try to punish those full screen. However, now I'm obligated to talk about a big part of this super which a lot of the Soul mains showed me in the chat, which is the beta version of this super. In the beta version of Strive, this super is actually incredibly broken, because you can combo into it and for some reason it sets the gravity scaling to 0 for the rest of the combo, which means if you FRC it, you can do the Soul Finite, or Soul Infinite, I guess. No matter how you want to call it, but this shit is very funny. I'm not asking they kept this in the game, but maybe let us combo into it, you know, maybe it could be fun. And now, moving on to Ky, his worst move is Dragon Install. No fucking wonder. Why do they keep buffing this move if nobody's gonna use it anyway? Now, let's get this straight, this is not a bad super overall. It buffs Ky by a lot, giving all of his moves new properties and enabling some sick fucking combos that you can do corner to corner and just loops with DPs and fodder arc. But still, the real problem with this super is that you are forced to be a low health to use it. And most of the time, Ky will have more uses for meter instead of wasting them on Dragon Install. I know especially the first one that comes to mind is Stun DPRC, which is a huge part of Ky's neutral and helps you not only low profile a lot of things very safely, but also get some very good damage off of it, especially thanks to all the new system mechanics that came out in Season 3, such as Wild Assault. In fact, the optimization has gotten so deep with this move that now with the new mechanics you can do the corner to corner combos without Dragon Install, and so that makes the super kind of obsolete for that purpose, which is like the main purpose you want, it's like damaging combos. So now Dragon Install is pretty much only used for pressure, and even then Ky has a lot more choices with meter that are better than Dragon Install. So let's list a few. He has Sacred Edge that guard crushes in shock state for a lot of plus frames, while also granting some new damaging combos mid-screen. He has RTL, which hit confirms from almost anything he wants, and wall breaks from almost anywhere on screen with a knockdown. Even if we consider other RC uses, he has Fodder Arc RC for very fast overhead mix-ups, and also has DPRC for safety on wake up. So yeah, in general, you should never have a reason to use meter for DI.
For me, it's 2p. On the surface, this move doesn't seem all that bad. Yeah, sure, it's a little bit stubby and it has short range, but it's otherwise pretty average. But then you get to its brother 5p. This move literally does everything 2p does, but a little bit better. 2p is 5 frames, while 5p is 4 frames. 2p is -2 on block, while 5p is -1. 5p can be used for certain combos, while 2p cannot. I don't think there's any real reason to use this move at all. Some honorable or dishonorable mentions are 6k, which is so slow that I could be watching the extended cuts of the Lord of the Rings trilogy and the move would still be going. And 6p, which is still a 6p, but it's a little bit more on the mediocre side. For Axel, it's 6h. 6h is a command overhead that's designed to be used for his pressure and mix-ups as a block and reaction check. It's also decently safe on block, being only -3. However, it's almost never used this way because this move takes forever to come out, being slower than all his other overheads such as his tap dust and his JH, being only 1 frame faster than his charge dust. There's also no special cancels, making it worthless on hit, and it only gives a hard knockdown when you hit them in the air. But even that's not useful, because you can just use Axle Bomber in those scenarios, which gives him some of the best damage output in the game. It can be used for corner combos occasionally, but it's very, very niche.
For Chipp, his worst move is probably a contender for the worst move in the entire game, and it's Shuriken. In fact, this move is so terrible that I couldn't find any recent clip at all of this move being used. It's just that bad. There isn't really a reason as to why this move sucks, it's more the fact that it does nothing besides being a meme setup. In fact, it does only 10 damage, and it has very low hit stun and block stun, while at the same time having a ton of startup and recovery until Chipp touches the ground. This move also puts an entire halt to Chipp's momentum when you use it, and for some reason, it has a fucking hurt box, which means that every character can jab it or press any button at all to beat it. So please, don't use it, it's a gimmick. Now, moving on to Pod, he's kind of a special case because he doesn't really have a bad move. His entire moveset is just very much fine, like there isn't really anything that's outstandingly bad like Shuriken. So for him, we'll have to go with a normal that's not very remarkable at all, which is JK. Once again, this move isn't bad, you can use it like for Gigant or Kai setups, even though JP is kinda better these days for that purpose. But the problem with this move is mainly that it does nothing really beside that. It's not his best air-to-air, it's not like his best jump-in, it's just kinda okay. Which is sad, I really can't talk about it. But I can talk about Heat Tackle, which was his worst move pre-patch. For the simple reason that this move's input before Season 4 fucking sucked, because it matched with Hammerfall without the charge, which means a lot of the time, when you were trying to do your fucking charge motion for Hammerfall, you will get Heat Tackle instead and die because this move is fucking dead on block. But yeah, now it got fixed, now it's DPK, so I guess JK is his worst move.
Faust's worst move is, ooh, what could this be? I bet like 90% of you watching this didn't even know this move existed, and honestly, I don't blame you, the game literally tells you nothing about it. For those who don't know, it's basically a beefed up version of a super woo what could this be that basically sends out twice as many items, but it's inputted with 3 quarter circles and it costs full meter. The thing is, it's in a pretty similar boat to Dragon install with nothing really wrong with the move itself, but you're just so much better off using meter for literally anything else that's basically completely useless. Like I said before, it uses full meter. This is basically a death sentence because if you know anything about Guilty Gear, you know that meter is super important. Whether it's getting out of pressure, continuing your own pressure, cancelling the whiff animation of a move, or pretty much anything you can think of. Meter basically gives you creative mode, and the only real limits are your imagination. And using it all on something like that while you have so many powerful options like a Scarecrow PRC is really wasteful. I guess it can be used after a wall break, but even then you're just so much better off using its little brother and saving the rest of your meter for later. It's a really funny move if you're playing friendlies, but that's about it. Some dishonorable mentions go to his item store, which is only really used in special cancels and corner combos, and fully charged Scarecrow, which is meant to be a slower and more reactable version of the move, being plus on block, but Scarecrow is only really used with meter, so why not just do the less reactable version, make yourself safe with meter. For Millia, it's 6k, yet another slow and reactable overhead normal, which I think was designed to be used for when she doesn't have meter to make TK Bedman safe, but needs to hit her opponent who's been conditioned to block low. Not the worst thing in the world because it's plus on block while being special cancelable, it can lead to a hard knockdown if you hit the move close enough to your opponent, but it's still not that great.
Funnily enough, Zato's worst move is the same as his girlfriend, that being 6k. Again, another shitty, slow overhead, but unlike Millia, which has some particular uses, in Zato's kits in particular, it's dog shit, and we will soon see why. Now, we did say that in Millia's kit, an overhead like this did have a purpose, and it was because Bad Moon, it's unsafe, so you could kind of mix and match between these two overheads depending on what you wanted to do. But with Zato, this is fucking pointless, because Zato has a way faster, way stronger, way more plus overhead, that being 5D with Eddie out that he can combo with Frog. So why would you ever go for 6k as an overhead option when you have 5D? So even if you really wanted to go for 6k that badly, it's usually as a midi to B+, not as an overhead because it's too slow. And even then, he does have a better midi sometime in 6H, which is air dash cancelable. So yeah, this move is just kinda pointless in Zato's kit. For Ram, it's 2P, and how do I even fucking talk about this? Like, this button does fucking nothing. I've never seen it. I deadass forgot the animation because this move doesn't have a purpose. It doesn't have a reason to exist. It's like the black sheep of fucking jabs. And I don't have a video, I don't have any footage, I don't have anything to show you because I couldn't literally find it. This move, it's so dog shit that I could not find a purpose. And I guess at least it's a jab, that's something, but it's a 6-frame jab with a bad hitbox that's -3 on block, when this is a character, Ramlethal, with a 6-frame 2k that's -2 on block. And, like, again, why would you ever fucking use this? I don't understand. I guess I could give, like, an honorable mention to Blanky mode, because Blanky mode got nerfed heavily by the Rekka 1 changes. But yeah, I wish I could say more, but I just literally can't. Like, there's fucking nothing to talk about here. This 2P sucks.
Leo's worst move is definitely his command grab. This might honestly be the worst command grab in the whole game. But first, let's look at what the move was intended to do. It seems like it was designed to catch your opponent sleeping if they've been blocking for too long, and maybe used for tick throws, but the only problem is literally everything else. You know how I said I could finish the Lord of the Rings trilogy with May 6k? I bet I could find the One Piece by the time this move starts. I mean, to be fair, the animation does look pretty subtle, but the sound cue is just way too easy to react to. Another problem is that it loses to grabs. That would basically be like if an invincible reversal lost to meaties. And even if it is used for what it's designed for, it's still generally outclassed by a stance cancel into his regular throw because it's unreactable. And I mean, the input is pretty hard to do, but we're assuming you're playing at top level here. So yeah, this move sucks. Nago's worst move is JP. For JP, it's fine. Like most JPs, it uses a pretty generic air-to-air, and the only real weakness it has is its slow startup, which is to be expected for the kind of character Nago is. The only problem is that he literally gets nothing off of it, because it doesn't have any air specials or double jumps to convert into anything meaningful, and you're much better off using one of his anti-airs or an air throw. If it was literally on any other character, it would probably be an okay move, but since Nago has the worst air mobility in the game, this move is pretty much useless.
For Giovanna, her worst move is the enhanced version of Sepultura, and I hope I didn't butcher the pronunciation. Now, this is not a bad move per se, but it just doesn't do that much. It's the safest out of all the 4 follow-ups, and as of recent patch, it finally lets Gio beat people that match 6p whenever she does 5H into Shave, but it doesn't have that many uses beside that. Now, this move does have a couple very niche uses. As an example, you can use it as a frame kill for some midis, or you can use it to beat the Flex Shield and IBFD, but again, Gio doesn't really have a bad move. This move was just very bad pre-patch, and now it's okay. For Anji Mito is 2H, and it seems to have a pretty good hitbox, but trust me, the hitbox is the least of its issues. First off, let's start with the fact that this move is probably one of the normals with the most startup in the game. Even pre-patch, this was 22 frames, and they made it even slower to compensate for the fact that it's pulse on block. So what can you actually use this for? Well, you can use it in combos in similar situations to 5H, but 5H would just be better in those scenarios because it's bigger and more consistent and also way faster. You can technically use it for pressure resets, but both pre-patch and post-patch the frame traps are very unreliable, which means that 5H is better also as a frame trap, especially because its counter hit confirms are very powerful. Again, it's not too terrible of a move, but it's just very niche and left without much purpose compared to 5H.
Ino's worst move is 5D. Like a lot of moves in this video, it's not really a bad move. It has its uses as a mix-up after ground K normals and close slash if you have meter available, and it's also your most damaging wall break attack. However, Ino just doesn't really need a 5D, as she already has one of the most oppressive mix-up games in the whole roster, with pretty much everything you can ask for on offense. With her frame traps, strike throws, plenty of safe jumps, and of course her high-low mixes, so she doesn't really have many uses for it in most scenarios. This honorable mention goes to 2P, which is arguably her best A.B.A option, but is pretty much useless for everything else, and has an absolutely dogshit hitbox. And JK, which isn't really bad, but just more on the niche side. Goldlewis's worst move is his 5H, with his main problem being that it's severely overshadowed by his behemoth typhoons. The move can be used as a frame trap, but 268 does that too, and it's arguably better at it, because he can use it as a dash card to extend his pressure, and it guard crushes too. It can also be used as a counter poke, but once again it's outclassed by one of his behemoth typhoons, that being 624. What makes it even worse is that a lot of the time you'll be accidentally using it if you messed up a BT input, which is pretty annoying because it probably means your pressure is going to be cut short, or that you'll drop a super high damage combo. It can be used as a niche OTG option or a combo filler, but that's about it. Dishonorable mentions go to his 5P, which is usually outclassed by 2P. It's only really useful for some hit confirms. And 2H, which is basically useless as an anti-air due to its terrible frame data, and only sees use as a niche combo filler.
Now for Jacko, it's not really a surprise because you'll already expect me to say Minion Explosion, which is in fact her worst move, and it's also a contender with Chipp's Shuriken for the worst move in the entire game, and you rarely see this move anyway, because essentially, it is just a flex. All this move essentially does as a setup is just let you combo off throw and guard crush if they block it, but everything else it does works actively against Jacko because not only it takes 10 plus years to start up because you have to wait for the countdown, but even when it eventually does explode and you do hit the opponent, it completely depletes your minion gauge, which means you basically lose access to all the other minions you had on screen, as well as gaining a massive meter penalty on top of it. Adding salt onto the wound is the fact that this move is symmetrical, which means you can accidentally hit yourself with it, and even in combos it's unreliable because it scales like holy hell, which means that most of the time non-explosion combos will do more damage than explosion combos. So in short, don't use this move unless you're looking to style the opponent.
Happy Chaos's worst move is... Clone? Don't get me wrong, this move was absolutely insane during Season 1 to 3, with it being a disgusting neutral tool that made certain matchups feel almost impossible. And for whatever reason, it used to be able to function as an instant overhead with meter, as if it needed more mix-up options than he already had. But now with all the nerfs, it doesn't check as much moves in neutral as it used to, and has way fewer uses other than some matchup specific stuff like stopping May Dolphin. Also, if the opponent has meter, they can hit the clone and do a drift moment cancel to put themselves in a very advantageous position. And it costs 15% of your health, and Happy Chaos doesn't really have the most health in the world, so when you are going to use this move, you should do it pretty sparingly. It's not necessarily a bad move, but it just used to be so much better.
So for context, I wanted to do my best here and try to make every move for every character different, so the video will be very unique. Anyway, what's Baiken's worst move again? Oh god damn it. Yay! It's 2P again, just like Ramlethal, and for the exact same reason, not like literally the exact same reasons. So I'm gonna keep it short because I don't wanna repeat myself. It's 6 frames just like 2K, which goes farther and gives better combos, and 5P is 4 frames, so you should never ever use this for A.B.A. You can only use it for frame kills. Yeah, that's it.
Testament's worst move is 5P. This move definitely isn't bad at all. It's pretty low middle and tier, and although it's a little bit on the slower side, being 6 frames, it's to be expected for a character of their archetype. The only problem is that it's usually outclassed by 2P in most scenarios, and also whiffs on crouching opponents, so it's pretty much useless for pressure. Other than that, I just don't have a lot to say for Testament. None of their moves are really all that bad.
Now moving on to Season 2, we go to Bridget, and her worst move, which is not air-to-air rock the baby, for 2 reasons. The first one is that if you remember at the start, we said that move in a specific situation do not count. And Rock the Baby falls right under this. Because Bridget doesn't have multiple versions of a move called Rock the Baby. She just has that one singular move that is called Rock the Baby that is air okay. Which means that Rock the Baby should be judged as like a whole move with all of its version, rather than just the air-to-air version. But there's also a second reason, that being that air-to-air Rock the Baby in the latest patch got fucking juiced. Which means that now her worst move is 6K. The only purpose of this move is that it combos and frame drops off P buttons. However, off K buttons it will true block swing, which makes it outclassed to 6H, which also gives more reward on counter hit. However, it does have a couple niche uses, as an example to Wall Slump, but beside that it's not really that good of a move.
Sin's worst move is surprising absolutely nobody, Still Growing. What this move does is it gives Sin a random buff depending on the food being eaten. Meat increases damage, lobster increases defense, fish increases speed, Ezra increases meter, and the lizard restores health. These might sound pretty good, but each buff has 5 levels to it, with 5 being the rarest, only happening around 6.7% of the time. But when you do get it, the reward is enough to outweigh the other 93.3% of getting something irrelevant, and it's usually okay at best. Also, an even bigger problem is that there's literally no way to tell what level you even got in the first place, or the duration of the buff. So let's say you get a level 5 speed increase, which raises your dash speed by around 17%. This could be really useful against defensive players who are trying to zone you out, but you wouldn't be able to play accordingly to that, because there's no indicator on how long the buff lasts or what level you got. If you want to know more about this move, I highly recommend checking out That's No Moon's video, which is in the description below.
Now it's my time to shine because I'm a Bedman main, as all of you may know, and I finally get to talk about his most dogshit move. However, first we gotta go with a premise, because Bedman is weird. Because a lot of the moves in his kit look utterly dogshit if taken out of context. Just look at 2H as an example. In terms of frame data and hitbox, this move is just terrible. Like, if you just went off of numbers, you would think this is one of the worst moves in the game. However, Bedman needs to use this, otherwise he cannot play the game because he needs this for arrow stalling. Every single move in Bedman's kit usually has a purpose of wasting time, and if they can waste time, they can synergize with errors and actually become useful. This means that Bedman's worst move needs to be a move that not only is very bad in general in terms of hitbox and frame data, but also that doesn't synergize with errors at all. Which means that it's either 2S or 5P, and personally, I think 2S is worse for a variety of reasons. The hitbox isn't really the problem for 2S, it's more so the frame data and the fact that on hit, it's not really worth it, even if you manage to land it. Bedman ever since release always had consistency issues, especially regarding things like 2H dropping from his pokes. However, they did try to fix this on Faust by giving it less pushback, which means that now it works more consistently to 2H. But they did not give this to 2S, which means that now 2S is just an inferior version of Faust that hits low, because every time you hit it, there's just a higher chance that the combo's gonna drop compared to Faust. You could do the counter argument of saying that it's a low, but Bedman has another long range row poke in 2D, which has basically the exact same fucking frame data, but it gives a hard knockdown, which is like infinitely more consistent, so most of the time you would go for that instead, so the combo just randomly doesn't fuck you over, because when Bedman drops the 2S into 2H, he's unsafe on hit, in fact sometimes even counter hit punishable. So then, why is 5P not as bad? Don't get me wrong, it's a terrible move, the hitbox is just not very good for anti-airing, it's outclassed by JP and 6P for that purpose as well, and at the same time it doesn't really have any matchup specific use because 2P is so fucking big that stopping things like Ino overdash can just be done with that, which is faster by 1 frame and it also gives better confirms, so 5P just really doesn't have any use when it comes to anti-airing or defense. However, what it does have is an issue as a round start option. Because it goes pretty far, has very fast recovery, and is also just very fast on startup, this thing can actually be a very good low commit round start option, checking jump forward or some moves that extend the hurt box while keeping Bedman safe in case he whiffs it. Honorable mention, however, goes to S error because it's a move so inconsistent that sometimes it can fuck Bedman up instead of helping him. However, because it's a core tool of his kit, I really cannot judge it as its worst move.
Asuka's worst move is his accelerator staff. Once again, not a bad move, just his least useful. Also, I've literally never played Asuka in my life, so if I get anything wrong, let me know. Like the name suggests, it slows down his cubes, which is both a blessing and a curse. It can give Asuka a huge opportunity to approach, and he can use that time to manage his resources, but it makes hitting the cubes much easier for the opponent. It can be almost impossible to combo into outside of close range.
Heading on to Season 3, we start with Johnny, and his worst move, which is S-Deal. This move has simply very niche uses and doesn't have nearly as many uses as the other two versions of Deal. On Oki, Johnny usually wants to 50-50 with either low misfiner or TK misfiner, and S-Deal doesn't let him do that compared to the other two because it goes so far up into the air that low misfiner will whiff. Even in neutral, where you may think that you could check jump attempts with it by doing entire misfiner and maybe getting a barrel combo with the card pop, you can do the same thing with P card, so again, this doesn't really have any use.
Elphelt's another character who, say with me guys, doesn't have any truly bad moves. but from what I've gathered in the Elphelt Discord server, was that her least useful move was her air throw due to its Oki setups being very limited. But if you aren't counting throws, her worst would probably be 5D because she just doesn't really need to use it in a lot of scenarios. That is, as of now. If we go back to Season 3, her worst move without question would be your command grab super. Honestly, I don't even know where to start with this move. It leads to barely any damage, being rivaled by a simple throw into fast RC combo, but it costs more meter, and that's not even mentioning her already insanely strong mix-up game, even without meter, making this move even more relevant. But ironically, nowadays, it's by far one of her best tools, being your best option for wall breaks and making her absolutely terrifying when she gets the advantage.
So because A.B.A has two forms, I'll do it like this. Her worst move in general, and her worst move in Jealous Rage. And her worst move in general is JH. This move is insanely slow, but on startup and recovery, even for an A.B.A normal mode move, this is just terrible. And it's not like the hitbox makes up for it, because this move really seems to fucking hate hitting crouching characters. It's a jumping normal, an overhead, but it really struggles to hit a lot of crouching characters for some reason, even if you IAD. Even using it as an air-to-air isn't really reliable because, again, it's so slow that you may just get interrupted, it can whiff very easily, or the follow-up may whiff very easily. Which means you should just stick to JP into key grab, which is a very consistent air-to-air. Her worst JR move, 5D, really doesn't need much explanation because it's very obvious. In JR, she gets to 36k, which is an insanely fast overhead with very good frame data, so you would never really use Tap Dust to mix up somebody.
Slayer's worst move is JD. What it does is act as a combo filler during an air dash confirm. That's kind of it. It just doesn't have many uses outside of that, and while it can be a jump-in, it's pretty bad at it due to it being almost impossible to hit crouching opponents. I guess it can be useful during dust combos, but if we're being honest here, do you really need to mix with 5D as Slayer? Dishonorable mentions goes to the 6k, which is a pretty decent overhead and low crush that's plus on block, but nothing to really write home about considering his other offensive options. And 5h, which has a ridiculous disjoint, is a solid block string ender, but is definitely on the stubbier side, which holds it back a bit.
Queen Dizzy was probably the character that gave me the most trouble when it came to finding her worst move. Even the Discord didn't really know what to tell me on this one. Because similarly to Bedman when we talked about 2H, she has a lot of bad moves that could be good candidates, but she still uses them actively and they are important for her kit. So what do we pick here? In the end we decided that it's 5P. And sadly there isn't really much to explain on why 5P is her worst move. Sure, 6P is not a good end tier, but it's still miles better than 5P. 5P can be used as a poke, but 5k heavily outclasses it. And at the same time, even the reward on hit or anti-air hit doesn't really do any damage to compensate for just how terrible the hitbox is. It's 5P.
Venom's worst move is 5H. The biggest problem with the move by far is how stubby it is, especially for a character like Venom. It can be really hard to land it a lot of the time, and even when you do, it's not particularly rewarding on hit and or block. However, it does have its uses. For an example, the hitbox is completely disjointed, so it can be a pretty solid counterbulk at times. You can also use it to touch balls that are inside him to launch at the opponent, which none of his other moves cover. Definitely not a terrible move, but it's just a little on the niche side compared to his others.
Getting close to the end here, Unika has two moves which could be considered her least useful, Weapons Free and 6P. And I think 6P is slightly worse. If you can land Weapons Free, it can actually be pretty devastating. It does a lot of damage, especially if you have the extra meter for the last follow-up, and also it's unburstable throughout the whole super, but that's if you manage to land it. In order to combo into Weapons Free, the opponent needs to be grounded and not in a juggle, and also you need to work around Unika's massive fucking pushback on all of her moves. Also, you need to be at low health to use Weapons Free, and I never really understood why, but in general, if Unika had like a kit of normals closer to like Slayer, this would actually be way easier to combo into. It's just the fact that Unika's moves don't complement Weapons Free very well. So why is 6P worse? It's a very stubby end-tier that can also whiff a lot if you try to confirm into it from a parry. However, it's still a 6P, right? You really need this for matchup specific stuff like how are you gonna beat Elphelt's wreck? Oh, right. Unika has probably the best DP in the game. So For this matchup specific uses, she really doesn't fucking care about using 6P because her DP is massive and can cover a lot of options that 6P covers as well. So in those scenarios, the two are actually interchangeable, which means she's one of the only characters in this whole video that can have 6P be her worst move.
And finally, Lucy's worst move is her gun, a contender for the worst projectile in the game. First of all, the hitbox is pathetic. Literally the entire cast can just duck under it, including Potemkin's fat ass, so it's pretty crappy and neutral. Second, the projectile is extremely fast, meaning that unlike characters like Ky and Elphelt, the projectile is always minus, both on hit and on block, no matter the distance. It's almost useless in combos because it heavily scales the damage as you use up a lot of risk. Startup is also pretty slow, which doesn't really do any favors, and once again, the hitbox is tiny, so good luck even landing it. Although it can be useful for some wall spots if you're too far away from any other move, it's underwhelming in pretty much every regard.
And that is it. Every character's worst move in Guilty Gear Strive. We started this video together basically when Dizzy was just announced alongside Season 4. So as you can understand, this video went through a lot of changes and it also took a very long time. I really cannot stress enough how thankful I am that I got Glitter's help in the making of this video. And so I really hope that you enjoyed it. Please make sure to leave some feedback, both positive and negative, both just help me make better videos in the future. In fact, make sure to expect a lot more content coming from me, possibly shorter form content, nothing as long as this honestly. Even though maybe when Strive effectively ends, it could be fun to go back to this and see what changed and what stayed the same. Again, I hope you all enjoyed the video, and if you want you can find Glitter's channel in the description. Hope you all have a good day, folks.